Hello and welcome to the March 26th meeting of the East Bridgewater Public Schools School Committee. I will take a motion to open the meeting.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Scott, second by Gordon. All in favor? Aye. Please rise and join in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you to EBCAM for recording and live streaming our meetings.
You don't have microphone?
No, there's a microphone right there. We're good, we're good. It's been tested, we're okay.
Okay.
First up, we have Lilia.
Hi everyone. Sorry about this.
You have your own mic?
Yeah. So spring sports started last week. They're up and running. MCAS was today. So the seniors got a privilege of doing a reverse half day. So we came in for the second half of the day. I think it went pretty well for the most part. The juniors and seniors had a prom meeting on Monday about expectations, everything like that, get their forms in for out-of-town dates, tickets, all that information. And lastly, come see Mom and Mia this weekend, Thursday and Friday. The show Thursdays at 7 and Fridays at 5. Yeah, that's all I have. And that's what I'm heading back to.
Good luck. Goodbye.
I hope everybody heard us.
Next up, we have Superintendent's Quarter.
The MSBA board voted to authorize a central school feasibility study, and you have those materials. I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Williams for a minute. We have our vote on Thursday for the MSBA.
Yes, Thursday the 28th. The selection subcommittee has submitted the RFS, the request for services. That information will be looked at and voted on by the MSBA at their March 28th meeting. Then we'll get notification that it's been approved. Then we can advertise, start collecting applications and resumes from operation project managers. Then the selection subcommittee will take about 2 to 3 weeks to collect those, sort through those, determine which ones they want to bring in for interviews. We were thinking, it'd probably be somewhere between 3 and 5. Could be a little bit more if there's lots of good candidates. Tentatively, we have April 25th as the date that we'll be bringing in the candidates to interview. And then due to the MSBA by May 8th is our selection. And then the MSBA will vote, I believe it's June 3rd or June 4th is when they vote to approve who we've selected. And that's, at that time, we'll be ready to move forward with our operations project manager who will oversee the feasibility study. So still some ways to go in order for us to get going with our feasibility study. I think they told us that about 22 months we could expect from this time now going through the feasibility study before we have information to bring back to the community on what the feasibility study produced and what the recommendation is as to whether it's a renovation project for Central School or if we're looking at a new build, which one is most cost effective.
Any questions? Thank you.
So we have a budget hearing on March 12th, 2024 for the school budget down at the Mitchell School. It's fast and furious at this time, as you know. We present the budget subcommittee will meet. Mrs. Foster sent out an email today to set up another meeting so that we can continue to talk all the way up probably till May 13th that night. We will certify the $27,129,049 this evening. A letter will be sent up, and that includes busing. That's what our number is today, and then as we go forward, we'll, Mrs. Foster and I and Mr. Shea attended a meeting with the town today, another budget meeting. Last night we had a budget meeting with the select board, the capital committee, and the finance committee. I think that all the town departments and the school department are agreeing that we are in good shape as a town, but we also need to make sure that we do things through our due diligence and to fidelity as we look at all the budgets through the town. And I don't want to speak for Mr. Meetig, but I'll speak for the school department. We'll look at everything that we have. We'll look at all of our personnel contracts, our negotiations that we're in at this time, our curriculum, and our those where can savings be saved? How can we move us forward? And how can we do? What can we do to keep our level service budget? I think it shows the faith that each department has in each other to keep the community moving forward. And I think that today was a great meeting. I thought last night there were some great questions. We had some questions that were sent down this morning. Mr. Phelan, I sent them over to Jay's side on the vans that we talked about last night, and transporting some McKinney-Vento students, homeless students, foster care children, and students with IEPs or 504s. They're looking at some savings on that side with the vans that we already own and going out, possibly getting some van drivers for next year. So we're doing the pros and the cons. We're looking at everything that we can do to support our level service budget. So I hope that we'll get that vote this evening.
I agree. I think the message that we're getting right now is that right now we're in good shape, and we might need to make some decisions to stay that way over the next couple of years. So we're going to come together as a subcommittee again and kind of take another look at the budget and see what we can do. And see where it goes from here. And we'll certify the number that we presented last week. That can come down, it cannot go up. So.
Just let me know that we, on School Spring, Indeed, and in other areas, we also post some, once in a while up on Parent Square if we're in dire need. But all positions in the district are up and posted. Regardless of where they are and what discipline, we posted every grade that we have, pre-K through 12. And all the specialty areas, including, special ed, music, phys ed. We post them all because we never know what is going to happen, and we see what candidates are out there and what positions that will fill a retirement or a resignation as we move forward through the summer. I did say last night that we had the van drivers up on School Spring. They were, and they were on February 12th. There was a 30-day window on School Spring. I didn't realize that we were past March 12th, I guess, last night. But there's a 30-day window that the posting comes down after 30 days if we don't have any candidates, and we pull them down. And then Mrs. Stevens, myself, Mr. Powers, Dr. Williams, usually if they come down, we either have a candidate or we don't. And if we don't have a candidate, we, by sort of like history or what we've done in the past, or past practice, we take them down for a couple of weeks, let it refresh a little bit, and then we'll repost for the position. For the van driver that was up on February 12th, it went from February 12th to March 12th, and then Mrs. Stevens did pull it down, and we did not repost it. We were waiting to refresh for that position and all other positions. We also know that with teaching positions, that those young teachers who want to be teachers and want to join our district or any other district will be finishing up their student teaching over the April vacation. They usually stay to that week or maybe right up to the first week of May. So we usually post right after April vacation again to refresh. The principals are interviewing right now for candidates for next year in empty slot positions. Those positions that they find that they need, we want to find the best candidate, and a candidate that is either coming right out of college or someone that's moving or in a specialty area that we have. I know that Mr. Silva was talking to me the other day, and he's starting to get ready to interview this week or next week on a couple of positions next week. So they're all interviewing. Mr. Plaquette and Mrs. Byrne have started and trying to get these positions filled prior to the opening of next year. But, so that's really what School Spring does, and I said it last night that it was up, but I didn't realize Lunch 12 was here, but it was up, and we're just waiting to refresh that again. So, we did have email correspondence with Mrs. Stewart, and you are here. The chief and the deputy chief are coming this evening. They're not here right now. I prefer if you don't mind, if we could wait for a few minutes. I think it's important to have public safety here to have this conversation. We are engaged with this. We do believe in what your emails to me and the safety and gun safety throughout the Commonwealth, but especially here in East Bridgewater, in the schools and outside when the kids are playing, and adults and locking down firearms. So I believe that the deputy will have a couple of locks with him. I think he's going to talk about them, and I think he may have a few with him when he gets down here. And I did see the chief last night and today, and he assured me that they would be down, but I think they're
Because they're
presenting,
FinCom tonight,
they're
right?
presenting their budget right now. So, okay.
Appreciate it.
I would hand it over to Dr. Williams. Okay. Strategic plan,
If you want me to go into that next.
if you want
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
keep it-
Great,
Unless you want to take a vote.
no, that's fine. Because that way you guys can do your thing.
Sure, great. So just to refresh your memory, we had canceled, I think back in February, a school committee meeting where we were going to give you an update on the strategic plan under strong instruction. And it just kind of bounced along as we had other things on the agenda in the public hearing. So we thought it was appropriate to combine strong instruction and progress monitoring assessment objective on the strategic plan, knowing that the two go hand in hand. So you've got the full complement of the strategic plan committee tonight for those two areas. So what we'll do, with my guidance from Mr. Shea, will be concise and share with you the district perspective as well as what it looks like in each building. So I'll have Mrs. McPartland, our curriculum facilitator, and Mrs. Erin Fisher, technology integration facilitator, come join myself and Mr. Phelan. We'll share a little bit about the district level perspective over assessments, what we use for assessments, how we use those assessments, how we support the instruction in the classroom with curriculum materials, the technology assistance that is provided for staff through training. Mrs. Fisher will share with you an expansion that she's recently done within her department. And then certainly it's important to hear from Mr. Phelan, knowing there's been lots of conversation around special education and costs with special education and what we're doing here in the district to reduce the number of students needing special education services because of the supports they can receive in general education. So, that is Mrs. McPartland.
Excellent. How are you? So when I was here back in November, I shared with you the IRD data and how I had done a correlation between the spring data of last year's MCAS and also the spring data where we ended last year with IRD. It was kind of like a curve that looked like this, and I shared it with you. And what we noticed with that is there is an extremely strong correlation between the two. So it makes us really confident with the data we do get from this and how we use it throughout the year. So the projection it gives, we're able to look at the mid-year data. We're able to see where our students are performing right now. The mid-year assessment was given in January after we got back from the break, and teachers are able to use that to look at their classrooms, make educational decisions, and also look at the grade level and the school-based level. What I just passed out to you here, passed around, was a bar graph that actually gives you, I love this visual, it's a great snapshot of where we are in reading and math. I'll look at the math side first. If you look at the bar all the way to the right, you'll notice there's a 22% in the dark green. And what that 22% represents is how many students, the percentage of students in our district who right now are at the mid or above grade level for mathematics. And that's like as a whole. And then if you look to the left, Massachusetts right now, they have 19%. And we're including that as well, that 19%. Then you look at the national average, it's 15%. So comparatively, we're in a pretty good place there. And you can see that for all the different levels. Yellow is 1 grade level below, and then you get to the red, it's 2 and 3 grade levels below. What's really promising too is all the way to the left is the national norm, and if you look at the year, that was the winter data from 2018, 2019, so we're looking at pre-pandemic. A lot of what we look at is where are we comparatively to the curve after the pandemic. So they were at 21% as a whole, so us being at 22% now is showing us that we are in a really good spot comparatively to what we were pre-pandemic in terms of, you know, the nation. If you flip it over, you'll be able to see reading, same exact thing there. Great data here in reading. If you look at that top dark green, we are at 33%. Mid or above grade level, where they are at this point of the year. 29% for Massachusetts, 23% nationally, and pre-pandemic was 27%. So this particular data is, you know, like I said, super important to let us know that what we're doing is working. The things that we're doing in the classroom, we have a lot, we always have places to grow, but in terms of looking at a whole, we're in a good spot with great supports in place in the classroom. We have great interventionists who are working with students who need those boosts to move up and down up these levels. And then also like our instructional coaches. Those, I mean, that's a great area where they can be in the classroom and supporting teachers to make educational decisions. We're also using this data when we work with our February and April Acceleration Academy. So in February, we ran one. It was over the middle school for grades 3 through 10 for the math. And we'll be running it again in April. We're taking signups right now. So I know people go on vacation, but it's a, you know, shameless plug for we'll sign up any more students that want to go grades 3 through 10. But it's great. The kids had a lot of fun. It was it goes from 8 to 2 on the Tuesday through Friday up the break. But all of this data is what is given to those classroom teachers to use with those small groups of students. And it's all hands-on math instruction. That's what I have for myself.
My area, thank you for having me tonight. My area is strong instruction on the strategic plan, and in my role as the technology integration facilitator for the district, I've had the honor of developing with Dr. Williams' guidance a tech team that's representative of 10 teachers throughout the district. What this is allowing for us to do is we meet once a month and we discuss best practices and how we can best support through technology, our curriculum, and our data to keep our students excelling. We look at different areas such as accessibility, our multilingual learners. We have a lot of discussion around cybersecurity and also AI in the classroom as that is evolving quite a bit. We build professional development for our teachers that they can attend on the latest technologies. And then we have a lot of discussion across buildings as what we're doing to support all staff. So having that team has really allowed a further reach of how all of our technologies can support instruction and curriculum and keep our students having those essential skills to have access and entry into grade level instruction.
It was a real creative way for basically Erin to clone herself and to support all the buildings.
The instructional coaches are also on the team, so it's really great because they're hearing from our team of techie teachers and spreading the wealth. So it's been a real great team. So great. Taylor?
So certainly, when you hear about strong instruction, you hear about assessment, it all kind of ties in to each other. You know, we use the assessment to drive the instruction helps on the assessment. When we have the instructional coaches, you know, these are pieces of the budget that we really kind of drives what we do in our budget every day. Needing those instructional coaches, needing these curriculum pieces in there. And then the other impact that it has on special education, of course, is that we have all of our students that we're looking at through Child 17. So we do have Child 17 committee going, so that we're having a consistent child study, as much as we can, in developmental levels across the buildings, across the grade levels. And when we look at that Child 17, and look at what the student has in school and has needs, we bring into the companies like the assessments from my grade, what are their scores looking at, what is the strong instruction, are they having trouble with the interventions, have they seen the interventions? So all of those supports kind of help us in the special education to see whether a student is tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 intervention.
Any questions for the district group before I bring up the buildings?
On the already, when you look at these Massachusetts national numbers, Does what's the percentage of schools that use iReady? I mean, I'm certainly not the exact. Is it a fraction? Is it the majority of schools? Is it across?
It's actually like the top running assessment that's used across, yep, there are millions of students across the country who use it. And every year, there are companies that keeps growing and they're very responsive to their clients and to their districts, and anytime we give them suggestions for them to improve, a few months later, I see the improvement in the platform, and that's why we constantly hear about, oh, this school now has that, this school now has that. And mainly it's because it gives that consistent piece of data. It's one thing that we have that we can say from K to 8 is the same, and you can compare it year to year to year. And so, and this year they're actually going to be re-correlating their national norms. So that norm that they have, they're redoing those norms because of the post-pandemic, slide that has happened, but they're taking into account where everybody is now. So next year we'll have new norms to compare to. But it is
And their selling point is the strong correlation between iReady performance and MCAS performance?
Yeah, they've done a correlation. They do it with other states too, but what they'll do is they'll correlate their tests, and what they'll do is they say, they'll give you like a projection of, if a student is performing here, this is where they will probably perform on MCAS, and teachers have access to that when they're looking at the data. We can look at this mid-year data and say, well, if this student gets this far, this is probably how they're going to perform on MCAS, which allows us to intervene earlier than that to move them further along.
Great, thank you.
Have we been doing this long enough to know whether or not that is actually coming to fruition?
The correlation?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had iReady in the district for at least 4 years now, and for the last 2 years, we've been able to do the correlation because MCAS we didn't have during the pandemic. So for the last 2 years that we have, given it 2022 and 2023, we've done this same projection here, and the numbers are almost identical in terms of the only point, as the students get a little bit older, is it's a little bit less buy-in on we're working on it, but for the most part, leading up to that, it is almost a 1-for-1 correlation. So, we do find value in it.
It was really one of the main reasons why we switched. You may remember we were doing math assessment prior to that. And it was a little bit of a scary moment when we decided we're going to change while we're in the middle of the pandemic. But because they had the MyPath and students could access electronically, and that correlation was much closer. And that's what convinced us to make the switch.
And on the technology piece, what's coming down the road that's can't wait for it kind of thing? Just in general, not necessarily.
Our big discussions every time our tech team meets and every PD we go to is on artificial intelligence in the classroom.
Right.
And how we can use it as a scaffold. It's actually a tremendous scaffold for our special education students. For any of our students that may struggle with task initiation, it provides great exemplars. And thinking about being in the classroom, if you're studying explorers, you can now, with AI, have the AI be the explorer and have a conversation, with an explorer traveling Americas in 1650s. And so it's giving us a window into areas that we haven't traveled before. So we're doing a lot of discussion on that in our tech team, and PD. Our 2 of us are going to a PD next week from the tech team on AI. And it's just a continuous conversation of where it's going to fall in instruction.
Oh, great, really exciting, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we'll start with the junior senior. So we'll have Mr. Silver and Mr. Walsh. Gonna be the rude.
How's it going?
Good day.
So it's all about kind of go back and forth a little bit with promising strong instruction and assessment. So I'll start with the strong instruction. Obviously, the best way to see instruction is to be in classrooms. This year, we've had, as of today, 176 walkthroughs, official walkthroughs in teacher classrooms, so we've been out a lot, which is great. And some of the things that we're seeing is a lot of the UDL and inclusive practices that we've put into play over the last 3 or 4 years in the district, which really gives teachers a lot of avenues to kind of explore different techniques with kids, whether it be station-based learning, whether it be project-based learning, whether it be giving kids choice to do the things that, to show how they've acquired the knowledge that they have. A couple of other things that we've seen, we've really tried to push this year is student-led discussion and discourse. So especially in math, having students talk about, how they're learning the math, what the math means. So we've seen that's really kind of improved as well this year. A few things that we need to improve on as far as would be giving teachers time to actually work with other teachers, to look at data, to look at curriculum. So we have a new schedule proposed for next year, which is going to be 7 drop 2, so kids will have 5 classes a day, and then that will rotate through a 7-day cycle. The benefit to that is every teacher, every group will have one common planning time every 7 days. So they'll have 60 minutes of time, 25 times during the year, to be actually work with colleagues to actually develop lessons, look at data, develop curriculum. So we're really excited about that for next year. So I'll let you off with some of the data.
Yeah, so some of the data that I was looking for, and I already really focusing on 7th and 8th grade. One of the highlights that I just want to touch upon is when the students were assessed in the fall, we had 25 students out of all middle school students, 327 middle school students took the assessment. 25 students were at mid or above grade level. When they retested in the winter, the second assessment, that number jumped up to 48 students. So there was 23 more students shifting into that mid or above grade level. For the next category, early on grade level, we had 66 students in the fall. And when they retested in the winter, we had that number jumped up to 82 students. So we saw again more of a shift of students excelling and performing better on the assessment. Students who were testing in 1 grade level below was 110 in the fall, and that number dropped to 96, which is again a good piece of data because it's telling us that students are shifting into being on grade level or above. In the last category, 2 grade levels below were 44 students. That number dropped to 33 students. Again, a good piece of data. And the 3 or more grade level, students who were more than 3 or more grade levels below was at 82, and that number dropped to 70. So I looking at that data, I thought it was really encouraging to see those results. I met with Mrs. Griffin this morning. We spoke about the data for reading, kind of flatlined a little bit. We talked about ways to sort of look at that data. And maybe come up with some ideas to, offer a little bit more interventions for middle school students in terms of giving them more of opportunities to be exposed to like a reading class or, looking at intervention, enrichment blocks, and targeting those students who are not performing at grade level.
I think one of the things that's helped us with our math this year is Sherry Craven is our new instructional coach, who was an 8th grade math teacher for close to 20 years. I think that's probably a big reason why we've seen this increase in our math scores over the course of from the early part of the year administration to this point of the year. So I think having that extra help there for both not only the 7th and 8th grade but for the high school, we have a number of new teachers that she's worked with this year, a number of veteran teachers. I think one of the things we're also finding is with UDL, we're trying to meet teachers where they are, just like we're trying to meet students where they are. So there are teachers that come in that are really great in the content but maybe struggle with technology, or maybe they're great with classroom management but they're having a hard time making relationships with students. So I think for us as administrators, we're trying to treat the staff like the students and kind of do the same type of things with them. Actually, Jen McPartland and I had a conversation recently where we were looking at using iReady for 9th grade as well next year. Typically it would sunset in 8th grade, but we have a cohort of kids, which would be our college prep 9th graders in ELA and our college prep 9th graders in math, and try to continue that assessment to see if they get to grade level. The irony is we looked at our recommendations for next year, So teachers go and they recommend students from 8th grade to 9th grade for certain courses, certain levels. And we looked at the I-ready data. So if you looked at anyone that was, it was really amazing. If they were in the needs improvement area and we looked at what they were recommended for, it was almost all college prep. You could almost take like name for name for name. It was really, so I think there's a big correlation there. So what we're seeing in that data is actually reflected in what teachers are choosing for courses and the levels for students the following year. So the hope is that if we run that I-ready data 3 times a year for that 9th grade group of students, hopefully we're seeing that they're getting closer to grade level as well. So I think that was about it. So that's all we have for you. Unless you have some questions for us.
Any questions?
I have a question. This is, I think, great work. I know that pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, the concern was math. It's tough to do that outside of school. Like,
Yeah.
English you can read. It's tough to just do math at home. So to see the numbers going up above national averages before the pandemic, I think is fantastic. So it
You know,
sounds like we're on the right
one of
track.
the things too we found with both math and English, if you look at our 10th grade MCAS scores, we are pretty much with all the categories on par with the state. So if it's advanced or needs improvement, we're pretty much within a couple percentage points of everybody. Where we're really lacking those in our growth, so we're at like 32, 34% growth. So if we can push that to 44%, the rest of those numbers should really jump pretty high. So I think that's the challenge of teachers to push themselves and push kids. I think it's now that we're past the pandemic, maybe we can push a little harder and get kids to kind of follow along.
With the I-ready going in maybe for this subset for 9th graders, is there some sort of like extra licensing or something that's needed for the I-ready if it usually sunsets, or the kid automatically still has access to it? Maybe that's a not for now
It would
question,
increase,
but,
it would increase our number of licenses if we have an additional class. It goes based on the number of students.
yeah, okay.
I think it has to be by class, so we couldn't, let's say there were 85 students. Those 85 students have to be in particular classes because they licensed that one class, not the
Okay.
individual students.
Gotcha.
So for example, let's say if we have 3 college prep, 9 next year, all 3 of those classes would be in that cohort.
Yeah.
We probably wouldn't put our honors kids in there because those kids are probably, the reason they're in honors is they probably already hit that grade level requirement. So
Yeah.
no reason to test them if they're already there. And then it would be Algebra 1, College Prep and Algebra 1 honors for math kids for next year.
My 6th grader, who's excited for I-ready to be done at 8th grade, won't like that I support that. I think that's
It's a little bit of a struggle to get them
Yeah.
on task, but
we won't let him watch the meetings.
Well, and I think the more meaning you make for both staff and students, the more useful it's going to be. So we even just started to do that where teachers are having conversations with students about their data and setting goals for themselves. You know, this is, what you're trying to, the target you're trying to hit for the next time you take the test. But we need to also be deliberate in our efforts to help get them there.
Yeah.
So that's, sort of where we're at right now. It's great data to have, but we really do need to use it as a prescription for now what are we going to do, what skills are they ready to learn, and how we're going to be able to accommodate that within the classroom environment.
I've sat with my kiddo to do I-ready before. I maybe shouldn't admit this publicly, but there's things now that I'm like, oh, that's how you divide fractions? You know what I mean? It just doesn't, math is my strong suit. But when I sit with I-ready, I'm like, oh, I get it. You know what I mean? Like if you ever do sit with it, it's truly, if they explain it in a way where it really actually makes sense.
So
So,
what's great is that's our math curriculum as well, we're in classroom, so how they're asking them to perform on the assessment is exactly how they're being taught in the classroom.
And I think the buy-in we're trying to get grades 7 and 8 is to show them that the effort you put in here, even though it may seem like, it doesn't really matter, the effort there is going to help you, put you in certain classes in 9th grade, certain classes in 10th grade, maybe open up some like early college access for these kids as juniors and seniors.
Yep.
So we're trying to kind of build that capacity from down here and push it up. So hopefully we can do a decent job with it this year, but there's always room for improvement to make sure that every student's taking it serious and every student's finishing it within that diagnostic window. So
and hopefully the adults in their life, are also trying to
Mhm.
encourage that along.
that's the hope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Mississippi Brighton. Everything I'm about to say here tonight, and all the positives are due in large part to that individual over there. So just to make that absolutely clear. She had some, we didn't originally plan for us to both be here, but she said, I'm here already, so I'm just going to come and support. She's an amazing woman. Thank you very much. I'm so glad you're my colleague. I was listening to some of the initial comments that were being made, and I know that Mr. Phelan, for one, spoke about the synthesis, among between, curriculum and assessment and instruction, and how they're intertwined. But I also heard Mr. Silva speak about, where he would like to see the high school going. He had mentioned, time for teachers to have some planning time together, and he was alluding to schedule changes. And as I was thinking about the sort of those four components, I would suggest highly that, and I didn't believe it as much until really these past couple of years, and how important the operation and scheduling of a school is to advancing a school in the areas of curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Sometimes it is just the little things, like, tightening up, start time procedures, end time procedures, lunch procedures, attendance policies and procedures. Tightening these things up within a building really it makes it more efficient. It allows teachers and staff and students to focus on what we really want to be focusing in on. Time is not wasted. You're really allotting time for curriculum instruction and assessment and teaching and learning. And that is absolutely essential. And I see it really start to manifest itself firsthand this year over at Mitchell, where when we tightened up these things, when we paid attention to these little things, even though they seem like, what are you doing paying attention to how this happens for these 2 minutes here? Well, it really does pay off in making it so much more efficient when we really have those moments where we have the students in front of us and the teaching and learning is taking place. We found numerous minutes and opportunities for teaching and learning by tightening up those schedules. And I guess I can speak to one particular move that we made this year. We call it the intervention block. We call it a win block. And when it was an intervention block, it was about 25 minutes long. And we decided to expand that block and call it the win block. What I need now, what students need now, and we expand it to 45 minutes. And it happens at various times for the 4 different grades throughout the day. And what I've seen sort of happening within that win block is nothing short of just excellence. It's opportunities where, for instance, students can get services like OT, PT, and speech and things of that nature. It's opportunities where teachers can really teach and speak to the very, very individual level of students based on what the data shows them in iReady in those minutes. Special education teachers have an opportunity to work within those minutes with groups of students or singular students within those opportunities. Writing and math gets looked at such a finite level, again, the details of which pay off in the bigger picture. And just watching that sort of unfold and how data is used in those moments, or student history is used in the moments to advance students from where they are on a very personalized individual level is nothing short but impressive. And schedule-wise or structurally-wise, expanding to 45 minutes had unanticipated benefits. For instance, some of our reading times, students meet for 20 minutes. There's an opportunity to meet with 2 different groups in these 20 minutes. Some of our reading times last for 40 minutes. Now with the 45 block, you can go ahead and have it within that block. You can receive those services. Our specialists, our math specialists, our reading specialists, opportunities to work with students in those moments and pushing into classrooms based on the work that we're doing there. But back to that structure, again, that 45 minutes, we were able to do something that we're extremely proud of. When all of these elements are intertwined and synthesized,
Mitchell tries to move students in a balanced fashion forward, in the sense that we want them to be advancing academically as much as we want them to be advancing emotionally and socially with their well-being. And this period of time allowed us to at once offer opportunities for teachers to co-teach and plan together, but also afforded us a window of opportunity to introduce our diversity and equity and inclusion curriculum facilitated by our guidance counselors. So organizationally, we've arranged it in such a way that, our 4 counselors, for instance, would go and move their way through the homerooms at different times throughout the week, facilitating our lessons around these all-important concepts of diversity and equity and inclusion, and doing so in encapsulating it in this larger term of dignity. Really working with our students, how important it is to recognize just the central worth of each and every one of us, themselves and others, and taking lessons from there and building their lessons out of that has just been a remarkable achievement. Watching these students advance that way has been incredible. And I'm sure a climate and culture survey will reveal those advancements, I'm sure of it. But at the same time, when the counselors are working with these particular homerooms, we at times have 4 math teachers in grade 6, or 4 ELA teachers in grade 4. An opportunity for them to sit together, and I've seen firsthand them accomplish this in terms of instruction. I've seen them reorganize curriculum sequences. I've seen them review MCAS data and results and iReady data and results, and bring that to bear on changes in instruction. I've seen them share instructional strategies among themselves. I've seen how they discussed and integrated technology into the classrooms. I've seen specifically how they brought specifics of universal design for learning into their classrooms. I've listened closely and have seen how they bring elements of our DCAP and tiered instruction into their instruction. I've seen them create new materials. I've seen them support one another on social emotional levels because they had that opportunity to collaborate. In terms of assessment, I've seen them create and review common assessments, creating assessments in each subject area. Some are almost on the verge of creating this general assessment plan that expands throughout the year. And of course, while that is happening, students are receiving this excellent curriculum in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I can't think of a more efficient, effective use of time in a building that we deliberately took the time to create this time and space where all of this can happen simultaneously. At once reiterating the importance of the synthesis of curriculum, instruction, assessment, and even organization and scheduling, and how important it is.
That's important. That's what I need now, walks. So a teacher would be in a room with X number of students, and that teacher is equipped to focus in on, I know what Matt needs, I know what Gordon needs, I know what Liz needs, and so they do it individually, but with a number of students within that time frame. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding that.
Yeah, in terms of how the special education teachers and how the teachers are working with students in terms of that, during that period of time, how they can work with larger groups or individual groups, watching work within that 45 minutes, to me, is almost a microcosm of what an excellent classroom would look like throughout the day. Right? It's almost the ideal. Let's see that more expanded right out at that level, at that finite level, day in and day out, time and time again, in all spaces. That's the goal, right? To have that level of attention of teaching and learning.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? I think it's all out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mrs. Byrne is home ill this evening, so I will speak on her behalf for Central School. In true Mrs. Byrne fashion, I received a 20-page slideshow. So I'll just share with you some of the highlights. And really just to piggyback on what was shared both at the junior senior high school and the Mitchell School. Certainly, there's work still to be done, but it's nice to see that things are trending upward, and the fruits of the labor are really showing through in the data. At Central School, it's a little bit different because the students are so young and they're just learning to read. They have the iReady assessments for both reading and math, but reading needs to go a little bit deeper because students are learning to read. So a lot of the focus needs to be on phonics, phonemic awareness, and establishing fluency. So they have actually 3 different types of screeners that they use. In addition to the iReady, they also use a phonics screener for students, and they use the DIBELS data. And that allows us to see at a deeper level where the students are ready to progress so that they can start putting sounds together to make words, to then allow the ability to be fluent in their reading and ultimately comprehend whatever it is they're reading. So they use the 3 assessments in determining where students are at and what level of support that they need. So I'll just share, Mrs. Burnhead shared with us that in reading, she went from 26% of her students achieving at or above grade level to 61% in her winter data. And then for mathematics, 16% in the fall went to 53% in the winter. So as I said, still lots of work to do, but definitely trending in the right direction. Another thing that's done at Central School that I feel is extremely powerful is Mrs. Byrne and Mrs. Nichols, along with the interventionists, sit with every teacher 3 times a year. So after they've administered their diagnostics, they sit down to actually talk about that classroom of students, their data, what skills that they're ready to learn, and how the teacher is going to construct groupings within the classroom and instruction within the classroom so that they can focus specifically on the skills that the students need. And, you know, I think it was Mrs. Silva that said it, you know, one thing that we need to be mindful of is even though we have, you know, if we get new curriculum and we have all these assessments, we need to meet teachers where they are. And certainly when we're hiring new teachers, comfort level of teachers, we need to make sure that we're giving them the support, the professional development that they need so that they can provide the best instruction for students in the classroom. And that's part of that conversation as well. So with our interventionists, they then help to support the classroom teacher by looking at those lowest performing students and providing them with small group instruction throughout the year. But then they're also looking at those higher performing students that are above grade level and looking to support them as well. Because it's all about growth for all students. It's not just about getting all students to grade level. It's about taking students from where they are and bringing them up as far as they can. So that's one thing that we want to make sure that we're always keeping an eye on and mindful of those students getting the support at both ends of the spectrum, those that may need the reinforcement and then those that need the enrichment that are ready to go beyond grade level standards. So that's a little snapshot of Central School. Certainly I'll answer any questions, but basically to just kind of bring it full circle, I know a lot of times at school committee meetings I talk to you about the universal design for learning that we're incorporating into all of our professional development and into the classroom. I talk about the assessments that we're doing, the grants that we're bringing in. It's certainly a work in progress, but we're starting to see the fruits of that labor, and so we're excited about that. And we certainly want to give teachers time. That's the one thing that we've noticed is without the time to look at the data, to make conscious decisions about how they're going to adjust their instruction, it won't be as beneficial for them. So when we get to the calendar, I'll talk a little bit more about that part. But that's what we have for instruction and assessment.
Are you sure that Mrs. Byrne didn't send along some books as gifts?
Those are coming next month.
Now, it's okay if you don't know this off the top of your head. When does this strategic plan end?
So it goes through June 2025.
So next June. Okay.
Thank you for all the hard work and help in driving growth and so forth. And I understand there's a lot of data out there that, you know, you can kind of pull from. Is there anything as a district we're really trying to like put our arms around and focus on a data set that we believe helps us understand the impact that we're making.
So for us, the truest picture right now is the iReady, because it's done 3 times a year. MCAS is hard because MCAS is an achievement assessment. So it just tells us what the students know as opposed to what they're ready to learn. So iReady guides us throughout the year to make sure we are working on the skills that students are ready to learn, and filling in those prerequisite skills for those kids so that they are ready to continue along.
And as stated earlier, iReady goes through 8th.
It does, it goes through
So
grade 8.
what about those for 9 through 12?
Right, so it's common assessments within the content area for grades 9 through 12. As Mr. Silva talked about, certainly we have concerns with our math assessments. A lot of times that's the struggle in determining where students are ready to be placed, going from 6th grade into 7th grade, looking at pre-algebra, algebra. And we certainly want them to be as successful as they can so that they have more of a choice in what they pick for coursework at the high school. But for our assessments at the high school level, it's the assessments within each course.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Do you want to, since you have the floor, would you like to do the calendar now?
Sure. So you have in front of you the draft of next year's calendar. Just to briefly let you know the process, the Professional Development Academy first looks at the calendar to identify when would be the best time throughout the year for professional development. I know I've spoken to you before about front-loading as much as we possibly can before the school year starts for students so that we're not interrupting in the school year to have full days of professional development. So you'll see that there are 3 days before the school year starts. We still have 1 professional development day in the middle of the year, and unfortunately, that's really to accommodate election happening here at the junior senior high school. So the 1 full day during the year is that November 5th, Tuesday. Otherwise, the other 3 days are before students start on Thursday, August 29th. As far as our professional development half days, as I mentioned to you before, we are testing fall, winter, and spring. So our September 25th PD will specifically be for staff to look at that data and make some decisions about instruction within their classroom. They'll do that again on the February 5th professional development, and then they'll do that once again in May when we have professional development on the 23rd. I think it was last year that we moved those professional development days mostly to Wednesday as opposed to the Fridays. We feel it's more productive for staff to have those in the middle of the week, so they're moving right into another day of school where they can implement as opposed to the weekend coming back from. The conference pilot, I met with the conference committee and we're ready to move forward. It's no longer a pilot. We felt it was really successful this year, eliminating that Wednesday half day, giving that 1 more day of instruction in the week, having conferences Wednesday evening, Thursday half day, Thursday evening, and then the possibility of Friday. Also, the data showed that there were many more conferences that were booked here at the junior senior high school. When we had that sliding flexible time frame, we had more staff coming out to do evening conferences when it was 3:30 to 6:30, as opposed to 4:30 to 7:30, just that 1 hour difference certainly helped with childcare, and it actually increased the number of parents that were taking advantage of coming to conferences. So those conferences are plugged into the calendar as well. The only other substantial difference that you might notice is down at the bottom under the purple bar, open house. So traditionally, open house has been the night before school for central school and for grade 3, and it will be on Tuesday evening as opposed to the Wednesday evening. So staff will be here Monday for professional development. Tuesday, they'll be here. Part of that day is for teachers to have get their rooms ready. They want to be able to have open house that evening, and then we have professional development on Wednesday with school starting Thursday. We felt also it's helpful for students that it's not the very next morning that they're heading off to school, but a little time to think about what they saw at open house, have conversations with family, get themselves more in a frame of mind to be ready. Some of the teachers even thought 7 o'clock. Being at open house may be a little bit challenging to get them home and in bed without being too anxious about the first day. So we'll give it a try. Certainly if it has a negative impact on attendance at open house, then we'll revert back. But we're going to try the Tuesday as opposed to the Wednesday. So Professional Development Academy has reviewed, the East Bridgewater Education Association has reviewed, as well as the administration has reviewed. So with your approval, we will then share the calendar with all staff and families.
Is this an action item tonight? Okay. Election day. Is that a security issue with people coming into the high school?
Yes.
Okay.
And also it's traffic, parking.
Yeah, parking lot, sure, yep. Any questions? Do we want to just take care of the action item now?
It was being entertained to take 2 weeks in January for the winter break. We come back on a Thursday. It wasn't a significant difference in those that wanted the 2 weeks in January as opposed to getting out of school 2 days earlier. However, in speaking with the administrative team, 2 days in January of instruction is probably more productive than 2 days
In June, yeah.
16th and 17th.
Yep. And 2 weeks, is a long time.
Take them back.
Let me find the correct action item. I'll take a motion to approve the 2024-2025 school calendar as presented. So moved. Moved by Ellen,
Second.
seconded by Scott, all in favor? Aye.
We'll get that out to families before the end of the week.
Let's see.
Yeah.
So you're good now, right? That's all, your list is complete now? I know Liz already spoke to the budget. John, did you have anything else or no? Because I know I see it on the reports and discussions, but I don't know if there's anything else
No, I
inside.
have nothing.
Okay, so we've covered that. But yeah. So do we want to go ahead and take care, because I know we're still waiting. Do you want to take care of that action item now? Do you want to have the budget discussion and the certification now?
It works for me. I'm also just thinking about Mrs. Cullinan, who's just there about
Oh,
a
yes, oh my gosh, then let's do that. Okay.
Maybe we can help her out.
Yep, let's do that. So we're gonna do the field trip. Field trip request from Mrs. Stacy Koenig to the Museum of Natural History. And we're looking at this because it's in Rhode Island, right? Is that the deal?
Honestly.
Stacey, did you want to share anything?
We went to the Museum of Science last year, and as much as most of us loved it, it was very chaotic to try to keep track of a large group of sixth graders. So we were trying something a little bit smaller, but it still had the planetarium, which the kids seemed to really enjoy and thought it was a great part of the curriculum. And then there's also like a workshop, and it's just for our school. So the planetarium is just for our kids, the workshop is just for our kids, and then it's in a park, so hopefully on a nice day we can have a picnic and then get on the bus and come back. So it seems like a more low-key,
Yeah.
but yet still full of great content that we've already covered, so kind of bring back that background knowledge, and I think the kids will really enjoy it, so we'll give it a whirl. We're hoping to find our end-all-be-all for sixth grade, so I think this might be it.
Keep them contained.
Yes, exactly.
Any other questions? We're good? I will take a motion. Let me find it on my list first.
What grade did you say it was?
6.
Grade 6.
The third one.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the out-of-state field trip request for Mrs. Stacy Conley at the Mitchell School to the Museum of Natural History in Providence, Rhode Island on May 21st, 2024. So moved. Moved by Ellen. Second. That was Becky. Seconded by Becky. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay. Is there anybody else here that has an action item that they're waiting on? No? Everybody? Okay. Everybody? So let's do the budget now? Sure. So, which I think between the budget presentation and the select board meeting from our meeting last night and budget subcommittee meetings, everyone is informed as to the budget situation, both in town and what this includes. So I don't think we need to go through it or anything. But does anybody have any questions or any discussion? Okay. You look like you might. You look like you might have something to. He knows you're gonna assign him a task if he talks.
Don't do it.
I'm not taking any tasks, so prepare yourself. Go ahead, Gordon.
No, I'll pass. I thought it was a good discussion in the room yesterday.
Yeah.
I was encouraged by that. I thought it was positive.
Yeah.
I thought that, in particular, Mr. Pica obviously did his homework. He had a lot of, I thought, really in-depth questions. And I thought, by the way, that the team, particularly Mr. Phelan, did a great job responding to it. Great detail, great backup. So it was well done, I thought.
No, I agree. I thought last night's meeting went well. And as I mentioned earlier, we had a meeting, I attended the A meeting with the other department heads in town, which seemed to go well. Hopefully we can continue along that path over the next few weeks.
Great.
Anything else?
I would add, I thought it went well and appreciate all the departments and the work that they do and so forth and what we're trying to do here. I would also say it would be probably beneficial for us to share with, in those situations, maybe kind of our per pupil spending versus some of our bordering towns, just to help frame our needs within the town itself, just so that way they have an understanding that, you know, we're doing what we can with what we have compared to some other communities and so forth. So, and I don't mean that in any other way, just to help them understand where we're at. And what people spending.
I thought Superintendent Legault did a great job presenting the budget that night at the Mitchell School, and you emphasized that. It wasn't, woe was us, we're, you know, we're below the state average. It was, we do the best with what we got, and we appreciate that. And I thought that was, again, a good, positive message.
And that was in the back of my head tonight when we were hearing from the principals and the strategic plan team and everybody. I was just thinking to myself, look at everything we're able to accomplish in spite of being like, what number?
On the lower side.
Yeah, fair enough. On the lower side of per pupil spending in the state, I think it's a testament to the people we have working in the district.
But then when asked about the impact statement the last couple of days, and Peter, John did a nice job of, he sent up the per pupil spending of the entire Commonwealth, highlighted us, and then sort of had some we got some questions on that in the last one. I don't know if you saw that whole email, but that had gone up. But the impact of what we're saying of having iReady, that we're sustaining a program and we're using the program to fidelity, and we have coaches in place, we have instructional leadership in place, And then you have the students seeing the iReady format that you discussed over and over again. The comfort level allows students to shine with their strengths and to become informed in how to go forward. And I think the impact statement would be, if we don't have the budget and we don't support with the resources that we have, we lose all the instructional supports that help support the students. Resources are great, but the people delivering those resources and the supports for the students are what is necessary. And, that impact statement that we're going to...
Yeah, and I think we're going to have to, put that in specifics somehow, because I think as nice as it is to sit here and make speeches and talk about it, they want.
Sure, you want to see it.
More than that, so.
And I think that's why it's important that the principals acknowledge that there are other people out in the classrooms and on the floor to support the mission and the vision of the district is growth in each student. Whatever that growth is going to look like over their time here, is we want to see growth. We want to see you grow into a young man, young woman, young individual.
I do have, unless they're going to be able to ask something without you making me do something else.
We'll see, what are you going to ask?
One of the
Maybe Scott will volunteer.
one of the questions that came up was around school choice. And I just wanted to check my own perspective on it. And my understanding is that as long as we can accept students from outside the district, I know we get $5,000 per student, and our per student spending is higher than that. But my understanding what makes sense is that as long as we're at a level of enrollment that the student choice doesn't put us over a critical level where we have to bring in more instructional support, right?
Right. So we look at the numbers in each grade, and there are times that as they come in, I will halt on, the numbers are in here. If there's 20 students in the 10th grade coming in, and I've got 20 students that want to come in the 10th grade, we took a harder look at those students that are coming in. I can't say no to a student with an IEP, nor can I say no to a student that is AP. We look at the individual, we look why they want to make a school choice change. But we do have certain slots. We also talk to the principals to make sure that, or the principal, to make sure that, can you handle another 6 students in 9th grade? Can you handle another 4 students? When you see the seniors, they've usually been here a couple of years. They usually are going place else. And then if we do have you'll usually see, if you see a high number in 9th grade and 10th grade, those are students, we sort of cap those, because we know those class numbers are high in 9th and 10th grade, but there are some that we have worked with other communities that the student might not be having a great time in other community. So we'll bring that student in on school choice. We've got a student in mid-year, so we'll see that next year's budget, but it'll come up in school choice. But we could bring a student in mid-year, and then we had a student that wanted to go to another district for some different reasons. So we do work with other districts like that. If a child's being bullied or a child is just not...
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was the question that occurred to me, is that do we have students that school choice out of East Bridgewater? And how does that number, so if we allow whatever the number is, 40 students in, those 40 students end up going out somewhere? Or?
Not always. I think, most of our biggest population coming in is from Brockton. Yeah. And sometimes it's a larger school district where kids would want to come to us, to a smaller district. Some people used to say that, a lot of kids want to come in from sports. I don't see that as much as I see either academics or the social and emotional support systems that we have. So we have, 99 students going to Great Southeastern and
9 going to Norfolk Ag.
9 going to Norfolk Ag.
And then we have a total of 31 at least by this.
Yeah, 31 coming in.
But that doesn't show kids going to like private schools or the.
Or school choice out, like,
That's good.
I know there's a couple, or there used to be at least a couple going to Whitman Hanson. I don't know if that's still a thing.
We had a few that went, a couple of kids go for soccer and.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Soccer coach or
there's
whatever.
different opportunities in different places, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't know with our decreasing enrollment, and I was on a call with MASC a couple of weeks ago. It seemed like everything they referred to, enrollment in a lot of towns has dropped. So I didn't know if that opens up more opportunity for us to consider more. I know once we set the number, it's locked in, and if somebody starts with us, we're committed that they'll finish with us.
We hope, yeah. I mean, we do it, we're at the high school, junior, senior high school level, we do not have school choice for elementary. And that was the school committee's decision.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, we need to be mindful of the resources standpoint, and I don't know the 31 coming in, whether they require any additional resources or not, but I can tell you that I think we need to be mindful, and I'm not so sure if we're doing the district justice by inviting more people in without knowing if we have the resources to provide for that, Gordon. So, I mean, if we're on the lower end per pupil spending and we're only getting $5,000 per pupil when they do come, I think the number ends up being worse, if I'm not mistaken. So I'd be mindful of our stance on school choice going forward.
I think the point I was making earlier was that, let's say you have a class that has the capacity of 20 students, we only have 18. You could add 2 students to that without impacting bringing in another teacher, et cetera, then that's where the line gets drawn, I would imagine, to make sure we're comfortable with that.
But we have to make note of, as Liz said, if a child has an IEP or an AP, we don't know that, or she's not making that determination based on that. So given the skyrocketing costs in other areas, we need to be mindful of those things, is all I would say.
Okay.
Oh, can I just point out one thing? So, I'm pretty sure that we voted for school choice way back in like 2015 or 16, like that was way back. So we've had it ever since then, and we've had a steady cap, come in year to year. We haven't it hasn't been high, because we talk about it. And our per pupil expenditure has gone up, we're at like 25 or something. We used to be third from the bottom. We've come up quite a bit in the last 9 years. I think we're still going in the right direction.
Just one thing on school choice, if a student comes here on an IEP, we're not capped at 5,000. There is additional money that comes in over and above.
Does that money cover the cost of that care?
We could work on student by student basis. Sometimes it's pretty significant.
Do we know currently of the 31 that are school choice that are here? Do we know
I know
resources needed?
I know we haven't had to hire any additional special ed teachers, special ed staff for any students who are in school choice.
I would add that a student coming into the district, and I guess there's no other way to say it, but has significant needs. Mr. Phelan, their office would know that. And most of the time, it would not be out of school choice. It would be a family moving into the community and talking with his office prior to that student coming. And there has been students that have come here, and Jay has said we have a student that could probably perform better or get better services, and they may have a room that we do not have at this time, and we work something out, with another district. But someone with a significant needs in an area, special needs would know way prior to that. And that is, we cannot, that doesn't weigh on my acceptance of that student. It just says, these are the resources that the student's going to need, and can we supply those resources? So we need these. So we do. It's not like a check. They come in and we review them.
Any other discussion on the budget? I will take a motion to certify level services school department budget for fiscal year '25, in the amount of $27,129,049. So moved. Moved by Ellen,
Second?
second by Scott, all in favor?
Aye. Kind of talk about that second in total, but.
Yeah, well, but now that,
Can I just say something quick on that?
yes.
Just so we're clear, because we had, if you remember last year, we had that last minute.
Yep.
So that, what we certified tonight does not include the 300,000 in ARPA money that the town has already agreed to provide us next year.
So we won't have that specific problem. We won't have it this year. Okay, thank you, John. So our guests have arrived. We want to go back to that item. So as we had started to discuss previously, we received an email from Mrs. Sarah Stewart regarding safe gun storage. And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, what Mrs. Stewart was asking for us to do was to possibly share the information that she gave to us. I looked briefly to see if there was any policy related, a school committee policy related to that, and there is not one that I could find. So that's your.
So, thank you, Chief and Deputy Chief have arrived. Is it Mr. and Mrs. Stewart, you want to come up here to sit on that side so we can have a conversation?
Sorry, I didn't sign.
That's okay. We'll get you the sign and blood on your right there. So Mrs. Stewart wrote on February 8th about gun storage, gun safety, groups about in the homes, when kids go home, watched a video or got to engage in Secretary of Education Cardona's meeting on gun safety, who we called in on principles, so we did get some literature on that. Then we were going to talk about it that night at the school committee, and then we got it pushed off because of the snowstorm, or I can't remember what it was, an ice storm. I then reached out to Chief Jenkins to see if he would come down and engage in this conversation with us as a community, not only the school community, but that large community, because I think it's important what you brought up. Especially with the recent court cases that we've seen on TV, with a young man using a weapon and parents buying a weapon, and then it wasn't apparently locked down like it should be. I'm from upstate New York in the Adirondack Mountains, so hunting and gun safety is extremely important up there. And from a young child, growing up, there was always guns in my house, but in a safe. So I certainly understand, and we never touched them. They were my father's, and that's how it was. But today's day and age, it's a little different. So I applaud you for bringing this to our attention here at the district, and being a leader in the community to say, hey, listen, this is important. Somebody can get hurt, and it's just a matter of time before something goes wrong or a mishap happens. I think last night, a gun discharged from an employee from someplace in Massachusetts. I saw it in the hospital. So, I mean, these are accidents. They happen. I don't know how they happen, but I saw it this morning on the news, and I said this would be perfect timing to have you in. So thank you for coming. Chief, I sent you the email, Mrs. Stewart, and The concern is, and I let Mrs. Stewart speak, and hopefully you know the chief and the deputy, that they're here this evening to talk with us and to talk through this with us. What I will promise you is that after this meeting, by tomorrow morning, because the chief did read into this and sent me some literature as well, we will, as a district, I believe with the school committee support after listening this evening, we will put out a parent square message to all parents in the community, that, in the school district, of what we talk about this evening, and then how we support the gun safety and safety at home with all of our children. So I'll let you take the floor first.
No, thank you so much for the time and opportunity. This was a U.S. Department of Education and DOJ joint conference that was facilitated by the White House's Office of Gun Violence Prevention. It was invited all principals and implored that they would send out this messaging, and really a very my part, this was not political, this isn't about whether or not there should be guns or not guns, but just about kind of responsible gun ownership and reminders for folks in ways that access to guns inadvertently does result in being the #1 killer of kids, both through violent acts at school, but we've seen huge increases in teen suicide, and the majority of those take place by guns that are accessed by family members that are not properly secure. So there's lots of resources and materials and kind of fact sheets and infographics and materials that were very nicely put together to be shared, and that could be shared with both school communities, but also leveraging departments of public safety and police departments and other community organizations who reach beyond just students, of course. So I think it's an important message to get out. There was also, I don't know if folks have had a chance to go through, there is quite a bit of material there, so I appreciate everyone's urgency. There is a boatload of money for school-based mental health services also tied up in this, in the interventions with kids who may be inclined to take violent acts against for themselves or others, and resources there that might be available and of interest for folks here. So I don't know who typically the district kind of monitors those great opportunities as they come out, or different kind of guidance that comes down through those principal organizations, but I want to throw that plug in there because I'm not sure. It might have been buried in the various links in literature that was attached to the communications. But thank you. Appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you for having us. Obviously, we take gun safety pretty seriously, and I don't know if you, for those that follow our social media, if you see out there on Facebook, I put things out there, and the deputy chief puts things out there on the ATF and et cetera, about proper gun storage. It fits the law. So when the deputy chief touched base on it, he was promoted in October, but prior to that, he was a range officer and firearms officer for many years, and very proficient in firearms and firearm safety. So I'm going to let him touch a little bit on that as well.
I've been a firearms instructor since 1999, also living in the Leaside. Massachusetts is ahead of the curve with the law. We have it in a lot of U.S. security firearms. And they actually have enhanced penalties if you have somebody who's under the age of 18 living in the house, and you don't. And that's under the Master Law 131L. It's also, as a firearms instructor, you mentioned suicide as well. We just had a Zoom meeting for all firearms instructors in the state to include a portion of suicide prevention in instruction as well for our safety classes. And it's talking exactly about that, preventing access to weapons, especially if somebody is suicidal. You want to prevent that. Even if you walk alone and have them in your house, if something happens and somebody suffers a tough time, you want to take that access away because of how deadly that force can be. I did bring a couple of examples on how to lock them up here, which would make them safe in the home. And they actually do have some free locks through child safety, or these carry locks they gave out to us with suicidal weapon program. They handed out cases of them to us. You have those, your trigger locks that can make it secure. The other thing is the keys. Don't just put a lock on them and hide the key. Take the key with you. Make sure that the people who have access to the key will know where those keys are. Lock boxes, another great option. Another great option to keep, if you have a combo lock on this, bring the master lock on it, nobody can get into that box and use it, especially in the spur of the moment, as you were saying, for the child in the crisis, you don't want to be able to get at that. One of the other things is actually educate your children. Talk to them about firearms. Don't just hide them away and say, oh, then there's that curiosity factor that they can, and they could go looking. My son has seen me teach classes for, I can't tell you how long. He ended up going to the Marines, and he's now 24 years old. But when he was in the middle school, my dad was working there. And one of the other ladies was like, aren't you scared to have him in the house with firearms? I said, no, he's seen the safety classes, he's been around for years. She asked him, what would you do if you came across a gun? Well, leave it there and tell that, I don't want to know. That's one of the other workers' kids, he walked in and he said, what would you do? Go check it out. Because he had no education on it and no knowledge of what to do. You really got to teach kids at a young age what they can do. They are dangerous, yes. They can be dangerous. And there are very good programs that we've seen out there. Even the NRA has an Eagle out there that tells kids, if you find one on the way, don't touch it, tell them no. Some basic, simple things to tell the kids, so that way they're educated on it. As I said, if you take curiosity factor out of it, it makes it a lot easier for the kids too.
Any questions or
Chief, does the police department of East Bridgewater, and I'm sure you follow state law, but do you have any additional information that we would add to the information that I sent? Or do we want it more prescribed to East Bridgewater, or can we hone in on this and take some of this information out and send it out?
I think we could definitely do a couple bullet points to add to it, which I can just follow up with each now. Some key bullet points on safety. And we can probably get, we're in the process of figuring out what I'm saying as well. I'll look at some more resources that I can get out there and push out social media wise, and maybe I can provide you, I'll get you those things.
There's still the opportunity for free blocks and availability for folks. I think letting folks know that would be nice as well.
I've been looking into it, and then we have a couple of cases left. We have a count of them, and we would give them away to everybody who came in. And I'm going to have to see if they still have the program available so we can get some more. Yes. Every gun that is actually sold in Massachusetts is required to have a lock with it. It's mass law is part of the thing to keep it safe, because so you tell them you have to lock them up. That's one of the things they do, they actually require a lock to be sold with that gun.
We have zero tolerance. I mean, I hate to say it, sometimes we show up on calls or emergencies or whatever, and we have noticed improper storage of firearms. We take it pretty serious. We charge people that, we have to go into their home for certain reasons, and we've seen some guns just sitting on the rental, et cetera, so, but we do take that pretty serious, so zero tolerance, it's still out.
Is there opportunity for us to further strengthen the relationship with the police department with regards to education, whether having them be a part of an assembly or open houses, or again, taking that curiosity factor away at younger ages, just something that we can, again, bring the community together to, bring awareness to this.
Put something together. And obviously you have a great resource in schools with RSI, and Morgan, so between there and we can work with them, obviously, in December, or anything else we can do to get the message out. We both live in town, we both raised our kids in town, so we're pretty much a big part of this community. We plan on being a part of this community, so anything we can do help.
I think that's important. I think that's why I wanted to have the conversation with the police, with the schools, and you as a family, as a parent, and to lead this conversation with us, because it's a healthy conversation to have. And I think people do get scared of guns and talking about guns, or then the kids, if you talk about them, then they're going to want to use them, and then they're going to want to see them more often. I think to the chief and the deputy's point, the more you talk about them, the curiosity factor goes away. And that's what we're here to do, is to educate, and I think that's what they were here to do, educate, and I think it'd be a great idea to have gun safety. I mean, we do the fire safety when they come out, and what to do, so I think could be part of it. I think we've always steered away in education away from guns. It was years ago that the school resource officer, a long time ago, would have to lock their firearm in a safe when they walked into the building, and then they would call the police station. It was locked in a lock safe, and they would do that in front of the principal, and that was many years ago. It doesn't happen that way anymore because of the environment that we live in. And you're right, it doesn't matter where we're at, we've got to do this. We're doing it for kids, we've got to do it for adults, we've got to do it for the community. So, Chief, thank you. Sir, thank you for bringing it to our, up in front. And I'll get that information out tomorrow, and I think it's important. Peter, thanks. We'll certainly move it forward, whether it's in the beginning or the end of the school year, or even started now, and just getting it in, and hopefully we get some locks passed out at some point if we can. And thank you for the information, and appreciate it.
Thank you.
We don't have to worry about police station. We tell these kids, they don't want to be afraid, and we do credit, even if we want to bring the kids down, an informational thing, parents in general, they just want to come down to see the police station, with an officer talking about gun safety. We'll have no problem with that as well.
As a young child, my father took me down to the police. Because they did something wrong to the dog, it wouldn't be for forever, so.
I think there's
I
think there's also a parent component, and I certainly don't mean to be preachy for parents. It's an uncomfortable thing as a parent to acknowledge.
Yep.
I do or don't have weapons in my home, and especially when they're younger with play dates. So I am that, again, I now 2 years of outing myself in this room. I just tell people, I would love to know, but I feel awkward saying, do you have weapons in your home? You know, but it's an important thing I want to know where my kid is going. So I now just did it the other day with a play date. I was like, Cal, I'm so excited for your kids to come over. They don't have weapons. You know, I share it because I think it's uncomfortable to ask it, but I think it's important to know it, you know, where your kiddo is going. And is it a home that's different that maybe has lawful weapons, but does that home have weapons? So, you know, you can have that maybe uncomfortable conversation. Right?
Think of that, you know.
Because if I don't have them in my home, my child, we maybe haven't been having regular conversations, but I have plenty of friends that have a partner in law enforcement, and there's a regular conversation in their home. It's not a regular conversation in my home, so I want to make sure I'm mindful of prepping my kiddos about what to do if they see one or whatever it may be. So I realize it's uncomfortable, but I just put it out there. This is what's not in my house. You know, just to be able to share that and maybe ease some of that or educate.
Certainly,
Giving them tools that work easier.
anything under the heading of safety to me is number one. And I was a little bit concerned at the conference, the school committee conference back in the fall. This was one of the items that we wanted to vote on to push to our Congress. And there was such a debate. I was shocked. There was such a debate. We couldn't come to a conclusion. It seemed to me, what I could hear was that people said, this isn't within our purview. This is outside our purview of the schools and the education of our kids. Which I thought, hey, if they're going to stretch it, let's err on the side of safety, and why not? But there was such debate on either side, they couldn't come to a yes or a no. It just was tabled. So. But
Well, I think it's a great point of collaboration. Like it might not be something that a school could focus on alone, but I think together with other resources in town, I think that there's definitely potential for some good work there.
Yep.
I certainly think that you bringing this forward opens our eyes that something that we may find that isn't in, and I'll say my purview to talk about, but it is in the chief's purview to talk about, that if we get together and we walk this out together, it makes it much better for the community to have an understanding that this is important to us. And to have a parent come forward and to say, this is important, like, let's get it on the school committee. I applaud you. I know it seemed like it took us a long time to get you up here. It was not pushing you off. It was trying to get the people in the room that can make a difference and it can get the message out, because I certainly am not an expert. Like the chief, we're experts in the education field. We're not an expert in police or firearms, and I wanted to make sure that what we do is that we do the right thing. You know, because sometimes we say we're going to do it because it is, you know, like you said, it's an important piece of safety. But if we say if we just do it just to do it, just to say, hey, we talked about gun safety, doesn't mean that we're doing it the right way. And so thank you so much for bringing it, and I will get something out tomorrow, and I'll send it up before we send it out, and then we'll get it out to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you guys for coming. And then having a long day already.
I'm sure that we take schools pretty serious in their safety. So very professional.
Safety education should be in your office.
Sure. I think it's good for the kids to.
It's nice to have that conversation proactively,
Yeah.
as opposed to after something happens, you know, which is what you see most times.
You know, I never thought to ask my kids when they went to go have plates. I'm an anxious woman that pays here far too many times.
Next, before we move on, yes, if I could, this highlighted not so much the issue that Sarah talked about, but this did bring some questions to me about what types of things, and maybe this is a future conversation, but when the school committee is approached or receiving communication about requesting something on Parent Square, I feel like we need to firm up what is actually a school committee, like are we making decisions about what's on Parent Square? Is that solely in administration? It obviously got on our radar because it was sent to us as well. But then, of course, it's like peeling back an onion, you know? So Sarah sent something, it's important. What if someone sent something that we didn't feel was important, right? Like, would it have not gotten attention? And that feels like it peels back something that feels subjective instead of objective. And I know you said there wasn't a policy. I feel in that, like, preserving or protecting us in some way, it might be worth having something clear about if something's going out on Parent Square, who is determining that or whatever it may be.
So we did have a conversation with our attorneys on what goes up and what we support and why it goes up and when it goes up and how it goes up. And because it's not there to market something, and it's not there to be an advertisement for every community action group and everything that goes on in the community. What it's there for is for information. I try not to do a lot on Parent Square from my end, because when my office releases something, it needs to be, this is coming from the superintendent's office, this is important thing. Dr. Williams doesn't send everyday announcements. When she sends something out, whether it's an iReady or a MCAS result, when we do that, it's important, it's coming out, it's coming, this is what you should look for, looking for growth, not just achievement. So and the attorneys cited on the air of caution of what we put out. I think Nick might have even said it to you at one point. We cite on the air of caution of what we put out on Parent Square, because we don't want it to be getting 100 messages a day about every not to take this away from, so just left the horticultural club, or the environmental club is meeting today. That's not what it's for. It's for information that comes across, whether it's safety. I'll have a message about what happened at Mitchell School today in a second, and some other things that go on. It's really there as a information hub for central office, and then the principals have it for just their buildings, and the teachers have it to communicate. I agree with you. There should probably be more of a pyramid. But the principals, if they feel that there's anything that, should I put this out or shouldn't I put this out, who should be putting it out, they usually call up and speak with me or Dr. Williams to say, can I put this out on this to everybody, or should we wait for Liz to put it out to the district? This was important because there have been school shootings. We do our ALICE training. We do a lot of PD around safety, and guns have been part of that throughout ALICE training. that everybody in this district has to go through the PD training. And so I thought it was important, not only did Mrs. Stewart send it to the school committee, but as we went through it, I think I remember talking to Gina about it, Dr. Lance about it, saying, you know, where does this fall? Are we doing PD on it? Are we going to talk to teachers about it? Are we talking to kids about it? And we talked about the ALIS training. And then, you know, we sort of went through the process of, you know, let's get the chief involved. So that we're all on the same page in the community. So I agree with you that it's probably is our policy of what goes on, our protocol what goes on. There are some things that come to us and I say no.
Right, because it's just some sort of fine line for understanding who's that decision factor, right? Because when it got put on the school committee radar, it's like, do we even have anything? Do we even have any input on what goes on parents' back?
Right, that's the thing.
Like how much does that come to us in that way? And that's the part I feel like maybe between committee and admin, we just need to make clear on, you know,
What goes on, what?
right? Like, because Sarah could have got an email from Lauren that just said, you know, all of that goes through this, or we'll circle back, right? But it was kind of like, I don't know, we'll talk about it. You know, something that just clears that up a little bit. Sure. I don't think we need to rule what goes on parents' right away. Like, and we just need to understand a fine line of what role the school committee ever have with anything on parents' right. None. Well, very little.
Well, right, that's why we're having the conversation.
Right. But just knowing that we're going to talk, I think the conversation about guns and gun safety, I think when people talk about guns, like you said, that people don't, we look at it and there's a curiosity factor, and then there's some people that are, I don't want anything to do with it, and then there are other people that, you know, either hunt or go to the gun range as a sport. And so they're all part of life and they're all part of the community, and that's why we bring it up. So,
Yeah. Oh, I don't disagree with what it brought up at all. I hope it'll come across that.
No,
But I agree about parents wear or not. Yeah, no. What role we have, but not like anything else.
So on that note, we'll go from heavy to heavy. We'll finish on lighter things.
Okay.
So I just know I asked to bring up this discussion because I know there's been some chatter around incidents happening in schools, and I've had some parents approach me about some experiences their children are having, you know, with repeated incidents and things like that. And so I kind of thought it was important to bring out into the open the policies that we do have, the challenges that we do have, the things we can and cannot do to solve these problems. Because I know at times there's dissatisfaction, and also a lot of times the school's hands are tied. So I was hoping to kind of shed some light on that publicly. So I know you've provided us the, right, because we have resources. We have our bullying policy that we have in our backup. Which we also approved changes for just a couple of months ago, and they were also in the handbook. We also have like our mission statements and things like that. So if you could speak a little bit about the limitations.
So, unfortunately, we've had a few instances here in East Bridgewater that have resulted either in students being charged through law enforcement, and we've gone in that direction. Students being held accountable through suspension, expulsion, which our hands are getting more and more tied in that, and the new laws and the regs from Massachusetts General Law. You can't just suspend a student, you can't just send them home, you can't just write them off. With the bullying, we had a word in our bullying policy and in the handbook that said it has to be viable. It had to be a viable report. So DESE had actually reviewed our bullying policy and our handbook and wrote back and cited the district the superintendent and the district on having that word in the bullying policy. Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lehane is our attorneys for student affairs, and they work on our, along with Delario Hillman and Davenella Hillman. Alicia St. Brian has our handbook, has our policies on bullying, and has taken this very seriously because all districts have had to review their new bullying policy, and we have to have this and provide this in a yearly update. Or is it every 2 years now? Documents every 2 years? Intervention plan, every 2 years. And so Desi will oversee this, write back to us, tell us if it's okay or not, we're holding kids accountable and what we can and what we can't do. But we found out we got rid of the word, we wrote our handbook language to follow the school committee policy. We went back to MASC, asked them for their policy language. We told them that what was seen, and then you have your new policy. And I know that Ellen does a lot of work in the legwork on policies and calls MASC and gets a explanation on why and why not we can and we cannot. A lot of bullying in schools is not reported, which is unfortunate. And we're finding that out to be more and more prevalent and relevant as kids get older as well. When they're younger, they may say, stop doing that to me, and the teacher sees it or hears it. As they get older, a boy may not want other kids or parents to know that they are being bullied or picked on or scrutinized for whatever reason. We had an incident recently that has involved cyberbullying. We have taken it very, very serious at the district. Our legal team is involved at the district level, and we will handle it. I have zero tolerance for any type of bullying, including and cyberbullying or any type of bullying, whether it is a fourth grader or a junior or a senior, boy or girl, students that are in transition. There's no need for it. We're not promoting it, and we try very hard to stop it. It has been brought to our attention by parents, by adults, by even students that something is happening. We try to find the root of the problem, try to find the student, and then we go on from there. We have some situations now that the high school principal is involved in, that we are involved in with, and we are working with his team and our team and the district's team to hopefully eradicate it. Do I see bullying be eradicated fully at the school level in East Bridgewater or any other schools? I wish that I could say yes, but when you watch TV and you watch people in places where kids watch TV or watch FaceTime, or they're on their phones, or they're watching different people talk to each other. Look at the political venue that we're in. And when you can say whatever you want to anybody and get away with it, and kids think that that's okay. It's not okay. Putting your hands on somebody else is not okay. We try very, very hard. We do our due diligence. I give a lot of support to our principals to go out and do what they need to do. By the time it gets to, I will say this, by the time it gets to my level, we're a little bit further away from the incident, but we are on it, and we bring our legal team in, and we do the best that we can moving forward. It's unfortunate that it's happening. I don't know really what else to say about bullying. We talk about it in our classes. We've had professional development with our teachers. We talk about it at the beginning of the school year with our staff and faculty in our faculty meetings about what they can and cannot do, what they can say, and what they can even put in their classrooms. Having up what we will support, what we won't, and the resources that they can use to model in their classrooms. The principals have a tight line to follow when it comes to the law and when a student is brought forward. I try to tell kids, you videotape something, we have the videotape. Or the Snapchat or Instagram thing, they send it out, it's out to 20 people, and then it's out to 40 people, and it's out to 400 people. That is now in here. We have cyberbullying in here. So we can refer back to that, and we do the best that we can. The schools are involved in more than what you would know. I was at Brockton Court last week, representing the district, with Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lahane's attorneys. So we are there, and we are bound by our policies, and we try to do the best that we can. We were called in again this week. They called us today, and one of our staff members do not have to go tomorrow because it's going to be pushed out, but they've called us in again on another incident. A lot more than you know, a lot of the videos that are taken are in somebody's home. They're in somebody's backyard, somebody's house. And the way the technology is going and the people that we have that work for us and the people that work for the police station, they can pinpoint where those videos were taken, when they were taken, how long did it take you to make it, and how many people it went to. So we're doing the best that we can. We're not alone in this, and that doesn't forgive us for maybe our shortcomings in some areas, but I do think that the administration team is doing everything they possibly can. They've had PD with our attorneys. They've had PD with their staff. They're versed in, or at least we try to keep them versed in Massachusetts general law, and we'll continue to do what we can when it comes to bullying. When we expel a student, there comes a time when the school year is over, and then there comes a time that we either have to accept that student back, or we have to find another route for the student's education. Free and appropriate education comes to every child, regardless of what they do. If they're a felon or if they get a felony charge, then it is different. We are not the liaison to the police, and the police are not the liaison to the school district. We carry out our investigation, they carry out theirs. If the child has a felony, and the child goes forward, and the child goes to jail, or he goes to detention, or he wears a bracelet or an anklet, that's that part of it. Then we have to do our own investigation, and we go and through our policies and our protocols, and we have to decide how do we provide education to the student? Where does the student receive education? Is the student harmful to other students still? Is the student harmful to himself or herself? So there's a series of avenues that we go down. There's also appeal process. The principal can suspend, 37 H and 3/4, and go out of school, which is the law. He or she follows that law. The parent can appeal. Then the appeal comes to me, and I don't meet with parents usually without an attorney present. Especially when it deals with bullying, cyberbullying, guns, or weapons. So I mean, it's an arduous. It's unfortunate that it's happening. I don't like it. I don't like to talk to people in a manner that is in bullying fashion, and I don't like to be talked to that way either. So I try very hard to work it out with people and try to move kids forward. Kids just don't do things that they haven't learned or haven't seen or haven't been a part of. Lots of things are learned behaviors or watched behaviors or seeing someone else do it, they think that that's okay. You know, we know about domestic violence. Bullying comes from, you know, kid sees it someplace else and she or he. This is not just a male dominant or a female dominant. We've had men and women, or young men and women. So.
Does anybody have any specific questions or remarks?
Where do most of the incidences of bullying occur?
Like at the school, like which school, or a school or home, or?
At school, because that's what we're here to talk about, right?
Right, so,
At what school do most of the incidences of bullying occur? High level.
Don't we usually have the behavioral specialists and people come and talk at our meetings about that stuff?
Can
yeah, but
get
that's,
an answer to this question
right,
first,
who asked
please?
a specific question?
I would have to get the exact number
So
of
we don't
bullying
know?
instances. I don't know what the exact number is, Mr. Furia,
Okay.
but I do have it because it goes directly to DESI.
Okay.
And we report every incident through DESI, through our portal. So I can get you that information.
Without knowing specifically.
Mitchell School.
Without knowing specifically, do you have an idea as to where most incidences of high-level bullying occur?
What do you mean by high level?
You pick with regards to where it needs to get elevated to have maybe law enforcement brought in?
Junior, senior high school.
Okay.
Mitchell School.
Where are the
School
majority of
is-
our resources being allocated with regards to preventing bullying from happening? Do we have the right resources at the right locations?
I believe so.
Okay.
What would I need to stop bullying here at the high school?
I don't think you're ever going to stop bullying. I agree with you. I don't think that you're
So,
never going
but
to.
I'm asking, what resources are you looking for at the high school?
Do you have enough people that are responsible for handing out the proper disciplinary consequences, I guess?
So, meaning, do I have enough adjustment counselors, guidance counselors, assistant principals? You're looking for assistant principal.
We did touch upon that.
Yeah, I've asked the principal, I go to the principal all the time. And I say, do you want an assistant principal? We've asked it every year. And all of the time, I will say this, most of the time, they will say, and I'll just say they, because we've had two principals in the last 3 years, Bill and Bill. They will say they would rather have an adjustment counselor or more people out walking around, adjustment or guidance counselor or another staff member than an assistant principal. That's what we hear. That's why we're trying to fill up the schools with adjustment counselors. We feel that the bullying issues are coming from more social emotional issues at the home that are coming in here. And kids are coming from a volatile or a traumatic home or incidents that are happening someplace in their life, and they're bringing it here into the building, whether it's here or at the Mitchell School. It's happened at the Central School. We've had some incidences this year of bullying at the Central School. Mrs. Dupre is here this evening. At the Mitchell School, there is a pronounced number of issues that you deal with daily, weekly. Deb, I mean...
Yeah, certainly. And we address the issues that come to our attention. And I have to echo the fact that, cyberbullying has certainly increased. And a lot of what we address at Mitchell School has to do with social media. And that is a large amount of what we do address at Mitchell. And we do informal and formal investigations. So we start with an informal investigation and try to find out as much data as possible. Not a lot of those lead to the full based on definition of the law of bullying and qualify as that, because a lot of things, we're still working on educating people about what truly bullying is as defined by the law. And so if it's informal, it still could mean that we put an action plan in place and we have steps to make sure that we are decreasing interactions or making sure that we have an intervention plan So anything that comes to our attention, we try to investigate and make sure that we're treating each other the way that we have a vision for it, and that's with kindness and respect.
And you had Boston for bullies.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
That was last year.
That was last year.
We had a version this year as well. Yeah, so we're trying to educate students, staff, parents on what bullying is. And I think that, we're a school system, I think education will lead to further progress in that area. And holding kids accountable and having high standards and expectations.
So the accountable side of it is, to me, paramount. And I think within the last year, a year or so ago, there was a lot of talk about restorative justice, which to me was a little unleveling with regards to accountability. So where are we at with the district with regards to restorative justice? Is that still something that is we're championing? Because I know, Jay, you had kind of touched upon that a year or so ago.
I think it's something that we still champion as one step in it. As the superintendent said, when you look at chapter 2.2 and some of the new regulations that came out a few years back during discipline, is there steps we have to take before you can go to levels of suspension? So I do think that restorative justice is part of that.
Is it possible that maybe that was kind of like a buzzword to help kind of move some things along, and maybe it's not been as effective as maybe they thought originally with the notion of restorative justice?
May I speak to that a little bit? So I spent a lot of time going around to schools for trainings and whatnot, and I think restorative justice certainly seems to have been a bit of a push because it made sense socially and emotionally and holding accountability. But in my view of it, so restorative justice really only works as true restorative justice if there's a full commitment to that being the intervention. So because kiddo behavior isn't always equal to restorative justice in a district, I've not yet seen a district be able to apply full restorative justice as the intervention because it seems to be, over the last several years, nearly impossible for that to be the route that's gone in terms of fully how to manage something. So I think what I saw is a lot of schools respond to an attempt at that because it, on the surface and on paper, seems like a really wonderful way to try to rehabilitate behaviors. But if it can't be done complete,
then it's not.
Right, so it gets looked at as one intervention of many when it makes sense to be so. Does that make sense? I certainly don't want to speak on behalf of the district, but in terms of how I've seen it not work in most districts, it's because it becomes such a challenge to apply it in that way.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a buzzword, maybe a little strong.
I don't know about that, Jay.
But I do think that...
Well, it was an intervention push. I agree. I don't think buzzword was it. I think it was intended to work.
Is accountability a buzzword push? Because I like that word.
I don't think accountability is a buzzword, right?
I think it needs to become one again. My opinion.
But I just want to say this, I agree with you, that everybody needs to be held accountable, but yet there's got to be some way to get them back engaged. Whether here or another district or someplace else, because at some point they're going to have to re-engage into society.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but I don't think before we get to the re-engagement, we need to make sure that they're accountable for their actions. Is that fair?
But there's only so much a school and a district can do to a child. I mean, the principal has 10 days. If a child has an IEP, it's got to be any more than 10 days, it's got to be a manifestation, hearing, and then we go from there. If a child does not have an IEP, we still have to follow the MGL 37H and 3/4. We follow that to length. The principal can put out for suspension, expulsion. There will be an appeal. It'll come to me. I have to follow the law, and I try to hold people accountable when they're in front of us or in front of me. But there has to be something to get them back. I can't just call another school and say, well, this kid did this, I want to send him over to you because we don't want him here. I don't have that luxury. We just can't do that. We have done that in the past where so this student will not make it here. The student will not be able to get out of his or her own way here because of what has happened a year ago in 6th grade with another student at the Mitchell School. We want a new start for this child. Because the state is going to tell me at some point, or DESE, I won't say the state, I'll say DESE, is going to say to us, bring them back. That's our issue. I can't, as much as I'd like to teach parenting, I can't. I don't know what goes on in everybody's home. I try to know what's going on here, and I don't know everything that goes on here because I can walk around and go to the buildings every day, talk to the principals, find out what's happening, but we don't know everything until somebody comes up and says, hey, did you see this on Snapchat? It's disgusting. And parents, when they see it, I would say 9 out of 10 parents, 10 out of 10 parents would be like, I cannot believe my son or daughter did that. I cannot believe this is happening. I don't think I've ever heard somebody say, I think at the beginning, when it starts, they're like, it was a joke. You think that's a joke? That's what I say to parents come in. You think that was a joke? And I think that that's when parents start to take it seriously when we say they will not be coming back for the remainder of the school year. Or they will not be playing sports. The MIAA is now in a battle because we have, the MIAA has instituted some penalties on players. The player's been ejected, the player's out. They won't let the player back in. Now, the athletic directors, principals have come forward and said, now we're penalizing the entire team because of the one kid's actions or the parent's actions or the coach's actions. So I think everybody's trying to look at discipline and how to figure out what the accountability is. How do we get accountability? You know, what fits, you just said it, what's the punishment, what's the crime? We try one intervention, it doesn't work. I bet you Deb Dupre's tried hundreds with students.
I echo that, and accountability looks very different for every situation, and sometimes accountability is just saying that's not okay and setting a boundary. You know, it depends on the situation.
Again, I'll just circle back to the resources side of it. To me, that is, back to how we started this particular topic. It's just whether or not we've got the resources in the right locations. That's all I would say.
Okay, then I will follow up with, if I had 2 assistant principals.
It's not for me to decide.
I'm not saying it's for you to decide. What I'm saying to you, the principals have to follow the law. So do we. Whether it's 10 principals in that main office or 2 principals, a principal and assistant principal, they're still going to follow the law. That student will start with an adjustment counselor on the first infraction, may go to the guidance counselor on the second infraction, may go to the school nurse or the school psychologist. We don't let kids back unless, there are some students that aren't coming back without an at-risk assessment. Is this student going to hurt someone else, hurt themselves? Why are they being so volatile? Why are they being so violent? Why are they being so abrasive? We ask those questions before we let students back in. I'm not saying that we're right. I'm not saying that your question is wrong. I don't know the right answer. Tonight we're talking about gun safety. Someone blows that door open tomorrow, who's going to be held accountable? And that's something that I look at every day when I walk out into these buildings and stop by these buildings and walk through these buildings and make sure that we're safe and we're talking about things and we're making sure that if we have a problem with a child or we think he could be volatile with somebody or violent, let's take action before we get there. I hear you on this bullying issue. It makes me sick to what I saw in the video last week and the week before. Sick to my stomach. Dr. Williams walked away from it in my office because it's sickening to watch and to hear. But I still talk to our attorneys. I still listen to what they told me to do. I still went into and talked to parents, and we still are moving forward. I don't know what else to do because the law, I think, binds our hands, whether it's a school district or even law enforcement. I can't lock them up.
I think for me, that was an important part of why this conversation was important, is understanding the limitations of school districts on how far or how much they can take something because of DESE regulations regarding discipline and accountability. That there's a lot of hands tied with that. There could be a brilliant idea out there in our district of how to maybe manage something, but there's rules and regulations that say, well, you can't do it that way. And then I think that binds a lot of districts into, I think that's why it looks also as bad as it looks, hopefully no one from Desi's watching. You know, that I think that creates part of the problem is that there's a lot of power that's been taken out, and authority has been taken out of school districts' hands on specifically how to manage something. And it's all regulated and reported, and if I recall right, a certain amount of infractions on something flags the school district. If there's too many suspensions, if there's too many this, if there's too many that, well, then you have Desi coming back, and they're looking specifically at what are your interventions, and did you follow them all, right? Like, I think it's just a web.
So that gets to a little bit of the data on that.
Yeah.
You know, we spent a lot of time talking about the bullies, what we can do to them, and your hands are tied for a lot of it. I think the important part for us on the committee is to think about the students and the parents of those students and the family members that are victims of bullying. I know for me, I had an incident at Gordon Mitchell. I wrote to the teacher. I got a fantastic email back from Mr. Paquette. It was detailed, had an action plan, conversations, results. As a parent, I was satisfied that it was being weighed seriously. There was a plan in effect, and I was confident that my kids are safe in a place they're going to be 180 days a year. I think that's what the parents want. And I guess our hands are tied with some of these kids. Some kids have to come back, and some kids have got problems, and you can't. You see bullying from Central Elementary all the way to the White House. People are awful in this world sometimes, and there's really not a lot we can do about it. And we can't change everybody's behavior. We can't make parents lock their guns up. We can't make parents not be awful to other people. But as long as I think the kids feel safe, and so I'm running again for this office, and every parent I've gotten a signature has asked me, what are your policies? And I don't have that. I just think kids need to be safe, educated, and get good jobs. That's all we're doing here. So for me, the safety is bullying. And if this kid's treating someone bad, I wish you guys had more teeth to these policies, if you could. I don't know if you can, though. I think it starts at home, though. If your kids are doing something wrong, take a look at their phones. They have no right to. The phones are great. I have a phone. I like it. If my kid's 16, 14, 13, and they have a phone, there's a Snapchat group with 30 people, I'm aware of this. I'm looking at it. If my kid's being a jerk, that phone's gone. So I think that's part of it. It does start at home. It can't just be on you guys and us to discipline thousands of kids in this town. There's some good kids. There's some bad kids. You got to the parents have to have an action in this. It can't just be us, because it starts there.
I agree, because, then there are times when a school district starts to try to tackle the bullying or any social emotional issue. Social emotional is like a trigger word for some people. What are you doing talking about that in school? Well, you're not talking about it at home. Somebody has to do it. So I think as a society, we're in a really weird place where a lot of these conversations aren't happening at home, and then we try to have them at school, and then there's pushback on that. And so I guess I'll respectfully end this conversation with an acknowledgement that I really think there needs to be, and I mean, a lot of parents are going to be like, oh, well, I do everything I can. You're not who I'm talking about. There really needs to be some accountability at home and some parenting at home. I know when I'm out and about with my kids, I'm the mean mom. I get I'm the mean, why don't you let me do that? I'm the mean, I'm sorry. I'm not so-and-so's mom. I can't tell them what they can and can't do. So I do think there needs to be more accountability at home, because we can't expect the schools to do 75% of the parenting in some cases.
It's good you're the mean mom. I'm the no fun dad. So
Cool.
That's a good parent.
I'll get the data for you on the bullying instances throughout the district.
Moving on to the superintendent's evaluation. I know Ellen and I spoke briefly a couple days ago about the fact that this is a mid-cycle evaluation, and I know, or mid-cycle review. I know Scott and I, aside from you, Ellen, and Gordon, who's been here before, most of the committee probably doesn't know what that entails. So could you talk to that a little bit?
Yes, it's very brief. So, a mid-cycle review typically is, that we don't do individual evaluations. It's an informal discussion. So Lauren, you'll most likely, as the chair of the committee, you could meet with Liz and just to see where she's at in relation to, the goals and everything. And then not to add not to add any more to your plate. And then it comes back in April, we'll have a full committee, and it's just an informal discussion. We just say where she's at, or she said, you and her can say where she's at for her cycle, and then that's it. And so, because we hadn't done, this 2-year cycle is new for this group.
Right.
And it's been a number of years since we've done a 2-year cycle. I actually called Glenn Kuchar just to confirm this. And Glenn Kuchar is the head of MASC, and he confirmed my.
Okay.
So we're not using super eval for anything this year?
No.
Everything's being uploaded into it so that you can monitor it on the way. You can still look at it.
Okay. So you and I, at some point in the 30 times we'll talk in the next few weeks, we'll figure out how to handle that. Okay. Any questions about that? Day on the Hill. I see materials enclosed. I'm not sure.
I'm gonna go.
Yeah, if we're going, Michael, do you want us to fill out this form, or just tell you and you'll do it?
There is an option, thank you, Dick, thank you, Mr. McKenna. There is an option on MASC that you can register yourself, and then with the option, it'll say, invoice my district, because the school committee pays for members.
Thank you.
So you want to go, and Ellen, you want to go? Okay.
I
Anybody
mean, I
else?
can do it for you if you want.
No, I can go on the website and do it. It's fine.
Yes, and usually, since I've been the liaison for I usually call our legislators and make appointments with them. So when we're at Day on the Hill, they, I don't know if anybody knows, I mean, Liz knows, Gordon knows, I know, but for people that don't know what Day on the Hill is, it's when we go and we meet with other MASC people and legislators. Sometimes they'll have Suzanne Bump, and now I don't know what the person's name is. They'll get up and talk, they speak, and we'll talk about the hot topics, and then they have the.
Secretary Tutwiler will speak.
Yes.
Come out and see everybody.
Yeah, and then the vocational schools come and do a luncheon. You can go to that too. It's informative, it's interesting. And then when we meet with our legislators, so MASC gives us these little cards when we all meet as a large group, and then we go and we talk to our legislators for what the important things are that we want them to champion for us.
So you and Gordon will be our fearless representatives at Day on the Hill. I can't go.
So I'll check my calendar if I can go.
Okay.
I'd like to go.
Okay, cool. So you can either go through Mike or handle it on your
If
own?
you need help, feel free to let me know.
All right, thank you.
I'll go ahead and do it.
I'm sorry, did he just give me something?
He did give you
Can he
something.
do that?
We'll talk about it later. We did, right, it's not an action item, so you're safe, Gordon. Is anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, we will move on.
Mrs. Foster, just one more thing.
Sure.
Today at the Mitchell School, a fire alarm was pulled. I think we were all in the meeting. As
Yeah,
could
we
hear
saw the fire trucks on by, yep.
And I kept looking at my phone to see if it was us. The fire alarm was pulled at the Mitchell School. We did later find out there's new protocols in place down at the Mitchell School, and kudos to the administration team for putting those protocols in place. They had taken attendance in all classes within 2 minutes. However, the students were outside for over 20 minutes. There was a delay in our alarm system getting to the fire station. The SRO was there. She was on her walkie-talkie down to there, and Mr. Paquette's had both cell phone and walkie-talkie talking to the fire and police. So the response was slow because of our fire alarm system and a wiring issue or a dialing issue inside the system. Brian Kiley, our facilities manager, director of the schools, is aware of it, went down and saw Mr. Told him that over April vacation, they are coming in to redo or do over
Okay, so that
the
will
system.
be addressed.
Yes, I do
Okay.
believe that, I'm sure that Chief Herron has been alerted to the incident and probably be down there tomorrow to take a look at it. I think they went back down to see Matt today or spoke to you when they were down there and try to figure something out. So we are on it. However, Matt, Mr. Puckett, tomorrow morning, at the Mitchell School, letting them know what happened, when it happened, how kids were accounted for, what the protocol is, how that all students were safe on the outside, how the police and fire, or how the fire responded, how the police, we had our SRO there, police were on call, and to get through it. Because we do know that they did have some parents call and say, why were we left outside? It's cold out, we didn't have this, we didn't have that. So we are going to be releasing some information tomorrow. I didn't think to send it to the whole district. I don't, keeping it in-house at Mitchell, but I wanted to bring it up tonight, that we are aware that the dialing system, or however that responds, did not go off as it was supposed to. So they are on it. The administration team's on it. Deb Dupre called up. Matt called up right afterwards, so right when I got down here, I was like, what? We're trying to figure out what happened. Jay Fallon's office is now involved in this, so I talked to John about IT. It is not it's not an IT problem. It has to deal with facilities and the fire, so we will work with them on the issue.
All right, thank you for filling us in.
Thank you.
On to action items. School choice. Is there anything, so I need to open and then we can discuss, or should we just discuss? Ellen, you're the procedure expert. What do you want to know? She just, the look. I was reading something else. Can we, I'm just going to do it. Does anybody else have any other things they'd like to discuss regarding school choice, or did we cover that in our previous discussion?
What are the numbers? I know we got numbers part of the budget.
Yeah, we have them. They're in your packet.
So, okay. And you're,
We haven't,
good with the numbers?
at this time, yes.
Okay.
And we don't release it until you say it's okay.
Right, we have to-
And then we have a date, and then they can request to come in, and then we'll go through them by the end of the school year.
Okay. So I will take a motion to continue accepting students under school choice in grades 7 through 12 for the 24-25 school year.
So moved.
Moved by Gordon, second by Ellen. All in favor?
Aye.
Action, home education plan. Would you like to speak to that a little bit, Mrs. Williams?
So we had a request from a parent to homeschool their child for the rest of the year. They have submitted that homeschool plan to me, and I have approved it.
I will take a motion to approve the home education. Yes, approve the home education plan for the remainder of the 2023-2024 school year that has already been reviewed and approved by Dr. Williams and recommended for approval by Superintendent Legault.
So moved.
Moved by Gordon.
Second.
Second by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
I will entertain a motion to approve the request of former school committee member Mrs. Amy McAlpine to present her children their diplomas at the high school graduation. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ellen, second by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I just tell you we missed one?
Graduating?
No, we didn't save that for the end.
Oh, my goodness.
It's not depressing like everything else has been tonight.
We're gonna end on a
Isn't it
happy
the
note.
environmental club?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a happy note. We're gonna end on a happy
We're
note.
gonna end with
It's
good
fine.
kids, not
It's
bullying
just-
kids.
Yeah. Action is required, I don't know, he asked, action is required after review to approve the Reed's Collaborative Service Agreement. Any discussion? I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Scott. Second. Second by Ellen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll take a motion to approve the Reed's Collaborative Agreement, acceptance of new member districts.
So moved.
Moved by Scott. Any second, seconded by? Second. Seconded by Ellen. Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
I'll take a motion to approve the payroll warrant 37 PS dated 3/13/24.
So moved.
Moved by Gordon.
Second.
Second by Scott.
That's still me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, with an abstention from Mr. Furia. Account action, I'll entertain a motion. On accounts payable warrant 36 SV dated 3/6/24.
So moved.
Moved by Gordon,
Second.
second by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Entertain a motion to approve the minutes from, do I have to do these separately or can I do them in the same?
Separately, I wasn't here for one of them.
Okay. I'll take a motion to approve the school committee, the minutes from the school committee meeting of February 27, 2024.
So moved.
Moved by Ellen,
Second.
second by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the March 12th budget hearing.
Second.
Seconded by, no, I need a
Moved.
motion.
So moved.
Moved by Scott,
So excited.
second, second by Ellen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and I believe last but not least, is anybody keeping track besides me?
You abstained.
I'll entertain a motion. We have a letter from Mr. Silva to Superintendent Legault, asking for school committee approval on an environmental club. There seems to be a compelling case made in this letter. I will entertain a motion to approve the request for a new environmental club at the East Bridgewater Junior Senior High School.
So moved.
Moved by Ellen, seconded by Scott. Any discussion?
Yes, I just have a question. My question is, will this end up becoming a stipend position?
Yes.
The stipend's not much. It's usually a small amount.
And sometimes they'll go through the clubs that they have every year to see if there's still interest in the club. So sometimes we see a club go, club come in, club go, club come in.
So it's our purview to approve a club, or does it have something to do with the fact that they want to do a fundraiser?
No, it's because it becomes, there's a stipend attached to it.
Okay.
There's a financial piece to it. So if they want to take a trip to
Belize. I would like to take a trip. Anyway,
So we don't have the stipend as part of this?
because we don't even.
Okay.
it has to be the club first.
They
And
love
the
the fact
stipend
that
for
it's
a club that
environmental
doesn't
club, they'll
exist.
try it out.
Okay.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. I will take, oh, wait.
Motion. I got one
Do
more.
we have one more?
So, Mrs. Shirley Brigham used to be part of the EBCAM. I used to call her Mrs. Shawkat. I did not know that her real name or her real last name was Mrs. Brigham. But she passed away about a month ago, and it was sudden, and I didn't see her, actually, and I was like, hey, where's Mrs. Shawkat? And then her daughter pulled actually Dr. Williams aside and said, I know that my mom and the superintendent were friends and used to talk a lot, so did you tell her that she passed away? So I do miss her here. She was here all the time, and she's very helpful. And I know that EBCAM, I spoke to Russ last week or the week before, and he was saying that, she was a big part. She was here all the time, and she was fun to have around. So I just wanted to mention her. But I miss her.
Thank you. And with that,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn. Made by Ellen, moved by Ellen, seconded by Peter, and also everyone, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Um,
I know.